For my DaVinci project, I decided to do Sephardic Jewish cooking. I chose to do this because I am a Sephardic Jew. Sephardic Jews are Jews that originate from either India, the Middle East, France, or Morocco. Since my grandfather's from India, his grandparents were from Iraq and Burma, I qualify as a Sephardic Jew. Sephardic cooking is interesting because Sephardic Jews come from such a wide range of places that they incorporate many different food types and spices into their cooking. In quarter one, I made kuba curry, which is basically a sort of spicy, thick soup made with balls of rice and meat. In quarter two, I made saffron chicken with honey and tomatoes. This was the hardest one I'd made so far because you actually have to hand peel the tomatoes, which you've probably never done before because it's really weird, but it's really, really difficult. Also, we had to use saffron, which is really expensive, so you need to be careful when you use it that you don't mess it up. In quarter three, I made Moroccan mini lamb balls, which I chose to make because they incorporated a lot of traditional Sephardic spices. Quarter four, I made falafel, which is traditional Israeli food, which actually comes from a blend of Sephardic and Ashkenazi cooking, so I decided to try and see what that tasted like. I chose to do Sephardic cooking for my DaVinci because I really enjoy cooking, but I wanted a way to make it more personal, and doing Sephardic cooking made it a lot more personal because I am a Sephardic Jew, so it's a way to sort of get in touch with my culture and my heritage. The DaVinci principle that this came from is the sensation principle, because that means to use your senses to enliven your experience. And I think that this definitely really applied to mine because in Jewish tradition and Jewish culture, food is very much a part of it. In all the Jewish holidays and everything, there's always specific foods that people eat, specific ways that they eat it. So I think that this is a real way to connect with the culture. I think that this DaVinci project did help me see parts of the modern world because basically the embodiment of modern Jewish culture and Jewish tradition is Israel. And in my final DaVinci project, I made falafel, which is a sort of modern Israeli food. And it showed how sort of old traditions like Sephardic cooking came into modern Israeli cooking. This project also showed some historical factors because in each of the different recipes that I made, they used very different spices and there were slightly different techniques for how they prepared their food, which shows the Jewish migration through the world because depending on where they were in the world, they slightly adapted their cooking to show and influence where they were in the world. This project also showed how the Jews were adapting to change because of the different spice use depending on where they had migrated to. However, it also shows that many of the same true Jewish traditions are staying because no matter where they were, the food was always kosher. And I think this project shows things about a humanities learner because humanities learners, it should be all around incorporating. It shouldn't just be history or just be English. It's incorporating culture and other traditions into your learning. My project definitely changed a lot from when I started to when I finished. Originally, I wasn't really sure what format I was going to do my project on, and then eventually I just started doing a blog. I actually chose the blog because I'd never really made a blog before and I didn't know how to do it, so I thought that this was a good time to actually learn how to use that part of technology. Another preconception I had about this was definitely with my time management, because I'd never really cooked anything before except like baking cookies, baking cakes, which doesn't take that long. And I didn't realize that it actually takes a really long time to prepare a full meal. So sometimes I definitely didn't budget enough time for that, and when I would be making my family dinner, we would have dinner at like 8:30 instead of 6:30. Another problem that I had was almost every single time that I cooked one of these DaVincis, I was actually on vacation, so I wasn't using my own kitchen. The first time we were staying at a friend's house in Australia, the second time we were at our house in Connecticut, and then finally we were in Hong Kong. But this was difficult because some of the places didn't have all of the material that I needed. They didn't have the same ingredients. At one point when we were working in our house in Connecticut, because we haven't lived there in so long, we don't have a lot of utensils. So I needed to cover the lamb balls on the frying pan to make sure that they cook completely through. But I found out halfway through that we didn't have a frying pan cover. So I ended up having to take a glass casserole dish and stick it over the top of the frying pan, which wasn't ideal, but it did work out okay in the end, which was good. Another part of this project that was really difficult was actually finding the recipes. Because I didn't have a lot of background with Sephardic cooking, I didn't actually know where to start. I didn't know what things would taste good together. So we have about 5 Sephardic cookbooks in my house. So before each one, I would basically just sit out with all of the cookbooks laid out in front of me and try and figure out what I was going to make, which was interesting. Another thing that changed was that originally I was planning to do Sephardic cooking the whole way through, but then my mom suggested to me that a cool thing to do would be to make modern Israeli food, which was the falafel, because Israeli food is sort of a combination of Sephardic and Ashkenazi food. So Sephardic, as I mentioned earlier, is the Jewish culture of the Jews that lived in India and Iraq and Burma and Morocco, whereas Ashkenazi food is the Jews from Eastern Europe and Russia. So because they lived in such different areas, the food was really different, but it all merged together in Israeli food. And I found this really interesting, and we actually eat Israeli food a lot in my house, but it was cool to actually make the falafel. Another thing that changed that I sort of learned to do through my presentation was the blogs, because originally I didn't know how to put pictures into the blog, and I still have issues with that. Like, I tried to upload videos onto my blog, and I couldn't get them to work, and I still want to learn how to do that and figure that out.